Southern Colorado's Rock Alternative 97.7 The Academy. And boy, I tell you what, folks, always a pleasure when we get a special guest in the studio. Today, we got a great one for sure. Today, we've got an American short track speed skating champion and an 8-time Olympic medalist. Now, he's a motivational speaker. He's a sports broadcaster, television personality. He's a New York Times bestselling author, and the man just survived going over 9 Gs with the Air Force Thunderbirds. Ladies and gentlemen, Apollo Ono. How are you?
Oh, I am on top of the world right now. I feel discombobulated. I feel like I'm trying to get my legs underneath my feet. I feel incredibly inspired and grateful and honored to be around those like amazing pilots and those
guys
machines.
It's precision, man. It is something else. But I got to tell you, I'm always interested to meet with you folks. A lot of big Olympic athletes go and fly with the Thunderbirds and then come sit with me. Most of them don't have the composure that you have right now. I mean, your color is back. You know, you're not green. A couple other people came in here. They were pretty queasy. But you survived it. Not only survived it, but you enjoyed it.
I survived it. I enjoyed it. You know, we were able to pull, first time we did it, we was like, okay, 8.9 Gs. Oh, is that enough? I was like, no, we should definitely try to really get the ultimate. We do, and we pulled 9.3 G. I mean, I have so much respect for those who are training and a part of this. And hey, and by the way, the graduation tomorrow for all these cadets who are being named officers today, it's just such an inspiration. And I was telling you before we started, I was like, I wish every American could come here to Colorado Springs and just see. This is what, to me, when I used to spend 11 years here training in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
So the Olympic Training Center was my backyard. These Rocky Mountains, like this place it formed and hardened my mind, my spirit, my body in a way that I just get so inspired by doing these types of things.
Well, it's, the altitude will set a lot of people back. And, you mentioned the fact that you spent 11 years here at the Olympic Training Center, but you also were going to UCCS. I mean, business degree. Isn't that what you're studying?
Yeah. As a part back then, as a part of being a part of the Olympic Training Center, I was here when I was very young. I was 15 years old, actually, when I moved here. And Colorado Springs, by the way, back then was a very different place. But this place has grown, and it is modernizing, and it's expanding. And UCCS was always a big partner of the Olympic Training Center to help athletes recognize and realize the life after sport, which is what we don't talk about that very much often. But
we will be talking about that in this interview, because you have accomplished so many great things in your life, and now you are getting older. And as men, we try to reinvent ourselves. So as we get into this interview, we want to cover that, because you being a New York Times bestselling author, I don't take that lightly, man. We got a lot to talk about. So let's get to your flight training, the pre-flight training. What did that entail? Were you confident enough at the end of that training that you're like, take me, Mach 1 with my hair on fire, let's go?
Well, they say something in the Thunderbirds, they say blind trust. They fly 18 inches away from each other and flying at these impossible speeds. I thought that we did that on the ice.
Right.
This is totally different. So you asked me, did I feel prepared? I can tell you I have and had blind trust for the pilot who was bringing me up.
Sure.
And he was incredible. And it was very in-depth in terms of all the safety mechanics associated with, if there's something that goes wrong, this is what we need to do. So I felt like I was in great hands.
Sure.
But to be honest with you, up at 4 a.m, went to sleep at 1, not much sleep. It was like a fire hose of information.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I got to drive that machine in the air. I got to fly. And it just feeling the way that it almost like read my mind was just mind-blowing. So I don't know.
We would talk about military precision, certainly the aircraft itself. I've worked here at the Academy for going on a decade, and it still blows me away when we have planes that fly over or Osprey that land or whatever it might be. It blows me away, but it makes me so proud to be an American and glad that these guys are on our side. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I mean, proud to be an American for sure. Do you remember a lot of the maneuvers, the barrel rolls? I mean, they really put you through the test, don't they? I mean, straight up.
We did the Cuban roll. We did the barrel roll. We did the one, I forgot the name of it. But you basically do like multiple rolls in a row. We did the one where you basically pull all those G's and then we turn left. I mean, we did it all. We did all the solo related maneuvers. And look, I have never been to an air show.
Yeah.
And I promise you, you have created a lifelong addict and fan for what is being done in the air. It's so remarkable. And like you said, look, I had the extreme pleasure and honor of representing our country in the Olympic Games. And here's the reality. If I made a mistake in the Olympic Games, I got a silver medal. Maybe I got a bronze. Maybe I didn't medal. These men and women, they make a mistake, and it's a huge team here behind the curtain, right, so to speak. And they don't come back. And so there's just, someone said, are they the same athletes? And I'm like, it's a different level playing field.
For sure.
Is the ultimate test. And so that, to me, I take these lessons from here and from this whole experience, and I stand taller.
Yeah.
I stand brighter.
Yeah.
I'm more proud, I think, than I was proud before to always wear that flag. But it just, especially in a time like today where there's uncertainty, there's conflict, there's, everyone's differing of opinions. It just makes me feel so strong and solidified in that unification that I'm so proud to be here, to be an American.
Oh, man. And, well, you talked about the fact, you being an Olympic athlete, a world-class athlete. The Thunderbirds fly with everybody, actors, newsmen, everybody. I'm always happy to see a world-class athlete get in there and fly with these other amazing athletes. But, like the local news guy who may be 40, 50 pounds overweight, who's never been anything like that before, that all of a sudden is going Mach 1 with their hair on fire. I mean, it's in a completely different set of human abilities, I would say. You being a world-class athlete, not to mention the most decorated American in the Winter Olympics, which is, man, that's a huge thing. I couldn't wait to talk to you about all of this. The Olympics is one thing, and all the Olympic wins is one thing. But tell me about the World Championships. I've always been curious with as many Olympians as I've talked to. What's the real difference between, the World Championships and, the Olympics? I mean, you both have people competing from all over the world, right?
Well, we do compete every single year. We have World Championships every single year. We have World Cups every single year. The World Championships is the same competitors that we will skate against in the Olympic Games.
Okay.
The major difference is everyone's affirmation that the Olympic Games, this is the one that really counts. This is for all the marbles, right?
Okay.
This is the real deal. So the mechanics are identical.
Okay.
The ice rink is the same. The temperature is the same. However, the things that are uncontrollable are now you've got 20,000 people packed into the arena, which you didn't have for the World Championships. Now you've got 10 times as many lights as you did before because all the media from every country is there. So you've got everyone coming in from the middle of winter, taking off their jackets. So the top surface of the ice actually heats up 1 or 2 degrees, which changes the feel of the ice. So every Olympic Games, the ice conditions favor athletes that are a little bit lighter, unlike the World Championships where you can control all the variables. So what's the lesson? You can prepare as much as you'd like, but when you get to that showtime, that prime time, that clutch performance, quite often more than not, you're going to have variables that are completely outside of your control, and you have to adapt on the fly.
Yeah, overcome and adapt. Absolutely. I thought it was interesting that you really began training full-time back in 1996.
Yep.
And then literally 23 years later, inducted in the Olympic Hall of Fame. I mean, when you think about it like that, like 23 years, that goes by like that now. You're in your 40s. You look back and go, man, that was just a blink in the eye. But 23 years, does it seem, when you look back on it, all the time, all the effort, all the energy, all the training, does it all just, it comes right to fruition, right?
I can tell you that I miss those elements every single day.
Okay.
There's something that is so beautiful about being purposeful in your pursuit in the sport, right? You feel like the world is giving you affirmation, giving you guardrails. The sport is telling you this is the purpose of why you're here on this planet. Your parents, your coaches, everyone, this is your sole identity as an Olympic athlete.
Yeah.
And so when I come back here to Colorado Springs, I look up in those mountains and I remember that's where I found myself.
Yeah.
So we moved away from Colorado Springs to train. Our U.S. speed skating governing body decided to move the entire program to Salt Lake City, Utah, and utilize those facilities. But in my final year of training, I came back here in the summer. I drove here from Salt Lake. I brought my bike. I brought all my gear. I lived in the Olympic Training Center. Our team was not here. I lived here for 4 months solo. And I found myself again in those mountains, up and down on that incline, that Manitou incline, bringing my weight vest. And it was this solo training of obsession around something that you care so much about.
Yeah.
And the world seemed to melt around you. And that, to me, that's the beautiful art form of sport and life and pursuit of something that is actually outside of your control. The result is not entirely, I could go to the games and not win and still be the best prepared person there. But it was that inner psychology, that inner drive, I think that we have as human beings to say, like, I seek progress over perfection, and every day I'm going to make a little bit better, a little 0.5% better every day, and I'm going to compound that for years. And by the time it takes, the curtain to rip wide open, I'll be able to stand there and say I have zero regrets about my preparation of getting here, and now it's all muscle memory.
Yeah. The early days, though, even before you got into speed skating, other sports that you tried that you weren't good at?
Man.
What did you try them all?
I did all. I did all traditional American stick and ball sports. I did football, baseball, basketball. I'm not the tallest of men, so those are out pretty quickly. And then I told my dad I wanted to play football. He said, "No way. Like, you're not built for it. I don't want you to get a head injury." I wanted to be a boxer. He said, "No way." So he threw me in the water, the softest stuff on earth. He's like, "Well, you can't have it here." And then I saw the sport of short track speed skating with my dad. This is back when everyone used to sit at home and watch the Olympics on the big screen.
Yeah.
And so I watched this and I saw this beautiful sport that these athletes to me look like superhero figures.
Yeah.
Like, without the cape, like flying around this like ice hockey rink, leaning at these impossible angles, pulling at the time like almost 3 Gs on one leg. It was awesome. And so, I grew up in Seattle, Washington. My dad started taking me to local competitions. He would drive me to Vancouver, BC. And like, thank God for my dad being just such a tiger father and pushing me when I didn't even know that I needed to be pushed. And then I eventually developed this natural talent for the sport. Then I met the first coach who really taught me about the discipline, the training, the scheduling, the persistence, all the elements that you need, not only in sport, but in life. And that became my bedrock, my foundational element of the hard work is always a shortcut. If you want to be great, you have to be willing to go to extreme lengths in order to do so and do things that others aren't willing to do many times over for years when they think it's maybe boring or mundane. But that's where all of the value is.
Man, there's so much value to it. And, I don't want to get way off here, but I got to tell you, I love the fact that you're raised by a single dad.
Yeah.
The single dads, in my opinion, don't get nearly enough credit for what they do. I myself was a single dad for a short amount of time. Incredibly difficult. So to be a single dad, to raise your son, to give him motivation and drive him all over the country to compete, man, it just says a lot about him. So I sooner or later, I'd really like to meet your dad.
He's here. And he's right around the corner. He's definitely here.
I will look forward to shaking his hand when we get done with this. Obviously, you had a brilliant Olympic career, 2 gold, 2 silver, 2 bronze. I want to talk about one of the silvers. Tell me about Salt Lake City, 2002. 1,000-meter final. You're closing in on the final lap, dude. You are right there, going to be gold, first place. Big crash.
Yeah,
it's a gnarly looking crash. You end up getting hurt, but somehow you make it across the finish line to pull second. What happened,
Chris? I'll give you some context. Okay?
Yeah.
So let me just back up a second. Okay. I think it's important. So this is September 11th, 2001. Everyone knows what happened on that date. Only a few months later was the Winter Olympic Games held in Salt Lake City. The country was reeling from that attack. People were uncertain. People didn't know about traveling. And now we were going to host the world's largest sporting event on home soil. So there was a lot of pressure and tension. Walking into the opening ceremonies, standing there, seeing the flag that was flown at the World Trade Centers being brought in, tattered, and then seeing the wind take that flag so that there was some motion and movement in that flag. It was at that moment that I realized that being an Olympic athlete represents so much more than the name on the front.
You bet.
Right?
Goosebumps, my man.
And so that moment in 1,000 meters was my first Olympic final. I had won. I was on cover of magazines. I was supposed to win this race. And out of all of the 8 medals that I won, this is my favorite medal, and the color was silver. And here's the reason why. I was in the lead with less than a quarter lap remaining, and at the snap of a finger, I get knocked down by another athlete. The whole pack goes crashing into the pads. After I could see the finish line, I could actually see it, only a few more seconds, and I had the gold in my grasps. I slid, I hit the pads, ended up slicing my own leg with my own blade, threw my skates across the finish line to get silver. I didn't know what had just happened. When I had gone back, Eric Heiden was the physio who actually stitched up my leg as a legendary long track speed skater. And as I come out, one of the media asked me, Apollo, how does it feel to have lost the gold? And for some reason, at the tender age of like 19, I said, I didn't lose the gold. I won the silver. Now, people had I think back then I had a little goatee, little soul patch, and they were putting like electrical tape there to represent that they were supporting me. And I went out there, and it was my sole goal to represent this silver as if it was gold.
Yeah.
And I wanted to walk away from this thing saying, like, look, life is always going to give you challenges and knock you down. And when you got a plan, sometimes it's going to tell you that you're not in control. And so I was going to be grateful, have appreciation. And I walked away from that moment, and I think people saw similarity in what they were going through in life.
Yeah.
And so this was, and it still is to this day, the single defining moment of my life. And I look back on that and I say, if you get knocked back down, if something happens that's outside your control, if you feel robbed or something happened that was against you, your perception and your reality is you can see the world differently. You can make a choice. And that choice is solely within your own human being, your self-governed system that is you. And so make the right decision to say, I choose to get back up.
Man, you never quit. That's the biggest thing that I took away from him. The guy never quit. He kept moving. You realized, I'm still in this. You swing your leg around, you spin across, and you made it. The other part of that was everything that you just said signifies what a real legit champion you really are. The way that you responded to that silver medal, man, was epic. Now, speaking of championships, I want to talk about the mirrored ball. You're a fantastic Olympic athlete, but you are one hell of a dancer, my man.
Thank you.
I was really, really impressed watching you on Dancing with the Stars. Not only was I impressed, but watching you win the thing. Julianne Hough, fantastic performer. Yeah. I mean, just a very talented young lady. Seemed like you two had a great relationship.
Yeah, Julianne she's amazing. She's from Utah. She had, come in for this first season. This was the fourth season of Dancing with the Stars. I mean, I was an athlete. I had never done anything in media, nothing on reality TV shows, and definitely nothing that was going to be live for 10 weeks in a row dancing in front of all these people. But I'll tell you, the work ethic was a huge proponent. That's why athletes always do very well on that show, because they're coachable, they're willing to take criticism, and they're willing to put in the work. And I think, man, that's like the recipe for life, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yeah. And a lot of people can't handle one, let alone all three of those. Yeah. A big deal. But like I said, you went on to win, and you learned a lot. Now, that training regimen had to be incredibly difficult. But like you said, you're used to it.
Yeah,
so,
used to it.
I mean, what an amazing opportunity. But then also, did you start to see stars in your eyes? Were you looking to maybe Apollo Ono, the actor? I mean, I know you've done some television stuff. You've done some great television stuff. You've done, some sports broadcasting stuff. So, I mean, you really have your hands in a lot of different pies these days.
I think a part of my want to always reinvent is because I stayed siloed for so long with one identity. And so when I retired, I said, I want to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I'm still very competitive. But that show changed my life. Yeah. Literally, the next day after we won that show, and I was in the airport, that's when I realized, whoa, this is not going to be the same. And I couldn't go anywhere. This is like kind of pre-social media too.
Yeah.
Right? Before the big boom. So everything had changed. And it was like, people seeing me in the airport no longer saying, hey, Apollo Ono, the speed skater. It was, hey, Apollo, the dancing guy. And I'm like, wait a second, what about my Olympic accomplishments? What's going on here?
Man, you talk about reinventing yourself. And you're one of those people that does it better than most people I know. And as we get older as men, that's one of those things that we look in the mirror and say, we've accomplished a lot. What's the next step? Reinventing yourself happens to fall in line with some of the books that you've written. New York Times bestselling author, you've written 3, a children's book, awesome, audio biography, and then your philosophy on life. Tell me about the book, Hard Pivot.
So Hard Pivot was, I began writing this book pre kind of this COVID pandemic, right? So it was this idea that every Olympic athlete that I had spoken to was really struggling with their identity, with what they were going to do yet next. And they couldn't find something that gave them the spark in their eye like sport did. And so I said, man, there's got to be other people in the world who feel the same way that Olympic athletes do. So I started writing about my own personal struggles and process with facing my own demons, my own insecurities, my own self-doubts, my own paralyzing thoughts that kept me within versus really breaking free and having no fear and actually facing my fears. And so the book Hard Pivot is designed to help cultivate a better conversation, radically transparent conversation. And I share losses in my life.
Sure.
I share a lot of elements of me that did not go well. And I think this is important to establish the rapport with the reader to say, hey, you may see an Olympic athlete that has no weakness. The reality is I actually have the same mind that you do.
Yeah.
And that conversation in between our own two ears can be the world's greatest asset, or it can be the world's greatest prison.
Sure.
The choice is yours. And so by developing a set of toolkit and tactics to focus on how do you find purpose, how do you embrace change, and how do you show up fully regardless of what's happening. So finding something to grasp onto. If you feel like you're at the very last end of this rope, tie that knot, baby,
Sure.
and hold on.
Yeah.
And I think that life is always changing so quickly. And my entire purpose and mission in today's world, whether it's in business, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in investing, whether it's in corporate speaking, is to remind other human beings of the power of the human spirit and the human mind. It is so unbelievable. And you can see it when someone's light is flickering, but then you see it come back on. They're a different person. And that resonates and radiates. And so that's what I want to imprint back, is to not say, this is my path, do what I did. Instead say, listen to your own true north. Listen to your inner voice. You can do what you set out to do. And it takes that first step.
Well, like you said, I mean, you're an Olympic athlete. You're a television star. You're a well-renowned figure. And if you can do it, other people can do it as well. But it's all mindset. And like you said, the power of the mind, it's incredible. It's exceptional. Out of everything that you think you've accomplished to this day, what are you most passionate about now, going forward? Where is your passion? Is it still kind of spread all over everywhere? Or do you have something that you really pinpoint right now?
I would say the passion is exactly what I'm doing now. So I spend a lot of time with America's corporations and institutions talking about how do we show up more fully?
Sure.
How do we show up better for one another inside culturally our organizations? How do we perform better at home? That's the main focal point. And then there's another area that's kind of less inspiring, but it's really focusing on how do I develop ideas around supporting the American system of manufacturing, the distribution, the cold storage, all these elements that we saw firsthand during COVID, just how important these things were. And a lot of times, the people who are doing the trucking or who are doing the distribution or the logistics, they're not getting the love, right? People just take things for granted. I want my Amazon package in an hour. But then in farming, exactly. All these frontline workers, so many different things, these pieces that keep us together. So I have a very close friend of mine who focuses on industrial real estate. And so now just really finding ways to support that entire economy. And I just believe that we are in another rendition of bringing these things, this onshoring that's happening. And so how do we support these things, these systems, these new technologies that are happening, whether it's through industrial real estate, whatever it might be. That's really the focus.
And it's just paying attention. It's keeping your mind open. It's been able to pivot.
Yeah,
That's one of the, if we could name this interview on anything, it would be pivot. I mean, you learn so much from that. Paulo Ono, what a pleasure. Sir, thank you so much for stopping in.
Thank you.
Thank you for surviving with the Thunderbirds. Glad they didn't scare you away. And as a motivational speaker, man, you got to come back sometime and be a speaker for us at NCLS, which is out here at the Academy too. So
it'd be an honor.
Real honor as well. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Real pleasure. Paulo Ono, ladies and gentlemen, as we get back into the music that made us famous right here at 97.7 The Academy.